October 10th, agenda session to order. Can I get approval on the minutes? All right, minutes stand without objection. Council, if you will take a look at your agenda for this evening, of course, our meeting is early today. We have a 1 o'clock agenda session and of course a 4 o'clock our regular council meeting. On the ordinance on the final reading, plan if it's comments or questions, just hit your light. Ordinance is on the first reading. Any comments or questions, please hit your light. We have Councilman Henderson, followed by Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On item 6A, I am going to ask for another 1 month deferral until November the 13th.
All right, got you there.
So we won't need a presentation or any of that tonight
Okay,
for that particular item.
all right, thank you very much. Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just was contacted by these folks yesterday. I'm going to defer for a week.
Okay, which items, D and E?
D and E? Wait a minute.
You have two on there.
No, I'm sorry, ma'am. The second one.
The second one,
Yeah.
okay. Highway 58.
Yeah.
Okay, defer for 1 week. All righty. All right, and thank you, Councilwoman Burrs. For item F, there is the applicant and community have come together and would like an amendment for that one. Is Karen or Eric here? If you could read the amendment out for this 3:30 meeting. For,
85.
yes, for 85.
The additional condition, there's already two on the, as part of the ordinance. The additional condition reads, a traffic impact study shall be required prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit along Dodds Avenue between 29th Street and I-24 into West Side Drive to the east.
All right, thank you so much. So that, council, is an amendment, if someone could this evening, for item 85. And I think that's the only amendment for that one. For items G and H, these both pertain to the west side. If council could defer those until October 31st, as we go over some additional information for that, for this project as well. There will be a presentation regarding the west side on October 24th, so we can defer those until October 31st. Okay, any other comments for items under first reading? Okay, we have Public Works. Oh, okay. Let me see. Okay, Councilwoman Coonrod, followed by Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you. Mine was in question to G and H. Have we received all the information that we've been asking for as a council? I know you said they're gonna have another updated report on the 24th, but I've not received any new updates on the
Yeah.
information about anything.
Right, not as of
The
yet.
surveys or anything.
They are working on the surveys, and we should, I'll be receiving an update this Thursday. And if it goes well, let's hope it goes well, I'll make sure that that information gets out to you all prior to the 24th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well, and I'd like an update on the surveys before, like I said, as soon as we can get them.
Yeah, that's fine.
Map it out to everybody.
Yes, that's I'm sorry, yeah, that'll be the surveys.
Okay.
That you'll have the update on.
All right, thank you.
All right. Councilwoman Burrs.
Two things, Madam Chair. Following up on Councilwoman Coonrod, I'm a little unclear if people say they want to go somewhere else. Are there somewhere else's for them to go? That's been a challenge, and I haven't heard anyone talk about that.
Okay. That, I will reserve that question, either if Jermaine has a comment for that one, or we can reserve that for, like I said, they'll be here on the 24th to answer those additional questions.
Yes, Councilwoman Burrs, and so thank you, Madam Chair. I think what we are trying to do is to make sure that once the Housing Authority has had a chance to complete the additional surveys, that data is then captured in a new phasing plan that they present, that they intend to then share with the City Council. And so that phasing plan would include plans on both the short-term and long-term sort of plans for residents who want to stay.
If I may, Madam
Yes, go
Chair.
ahead.
One of the concerns I've had, Jermaine, is not that this shouldn't happen, it should. It's that I'm a bit concerned about the idea of people having to leave and we're relocating them and giving them relocation funding and relocation counseling. Throughout history, we've relocated people, starting with the Trail of Tears. What I'm trying to figure out is if they are, I can't imagine anyone not wanting to leave the circumstance they're in. We all agree on that. It's, do they understand that there's two issues that I'm not clear on? Where are they locating to? And if they want to come back, that thing about you have to be in good standing. In other words, do we relocate them someplace and then they're off the radar? Still not comfortable with it. I think it should happen. I'm not against what's happening. But I get a little nervous when we talk about relocating people,
Sure.
giving them relocation counseling. I mean,
Sure. Well, so let me respond. The relocation counseling and the relocation assistance is required by HUD as part of the choice neighborhood
I
process.
got that.
And so, as the housing authority attempts to do what's called the build first strategy, as they begin new construction and take existing units offline, there will be points during the construction phase where some families will have to decide whether or not they want to take an option for housing someplace else until the new unit is built. And then when the new unit is built, they will have the option of returning to that new unit.
If they're in good standing.
Well, and so what good standing and I'll let the housing authority, when they come back to present that, they can come back and sort of share that information.
Okay.
But I think what the housing authority is most wants to be conscious of is that if you have someone who is currently in good standing and say commits, some sort of crime or something like that to that effect, during the time that they are not living on the property, that disqualifies them from coming back to the property, then that's something that they just have to be honest about. And that's what I think they were trying to share with us.
Well, one of the things they mentioned is the other good standing is if they're behind in their rent.
Right.
And that's problematic across the board. I just want to make sure that when the housing authority comes back again, that all of these questions or these answers are not nuanced.
Sure.
I want to know that if 100 people are moving, they're moving here. I can't imagine if they're really nice places downtown, that these people would opt to go where they've never been before and there's not a bus.
Well, that's their choice, because for some of the people who have been, in a situation where they have unfortunately lived in poverty, they may not have had a choice, or they may not have ever felt as if they had a choice in terms of where they could go. And so that is part of this process, is helping them to be able to choose where they want to go and to chart their own path for their own futures.
Yeah, and that sounds great, and I don't disagree with any of that. I just want it to be informed consent.
Yes.
That's all I want,
Yes.
informed consent. It sounds good on paper, but it sounds a bit like the diaspora, and I'm thinking I don't think that's what we intend. So maybe better answers, that would be helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, the only other thing I wanted to say is, Karen, at the end of this, can we have a minute on that Highway 58? I need complete information. I don't need a complete presentation here, but if you'd wait just a minute. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Burrs. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for those points. But I just want to add with Jermaine, because you've been working with the Housing Authority. And I know they've been meeting with Chairwoman Dolly because it's primarily her district, but everybody got concerns about it. Of course, you need 5 people to move the vote, but I think it'll be helpful if Bessie and her team really would just, a session without the public to really, address these key concerns, because it was some heavy hitters, some stuff that came up even in a historical capacity about displacement of people, whether if it's voluntary or not voluntary, that I think that probably will still need to be addressed, because the bigger picture, it isn't just about the surveys, and without that being addressed, like, I think it's still gonna foresee some issues with whatever it is, the way whoever vote. But if we can get that meeting with her, like, even if she wanna meet one-on-one, because I still have some concerns centered around it, to make sure, that we making sure we're doing everything on our end that people won't displace, because we know we have a shortage of housing.
Yes, ma'am.
And if I could give whoever a Section 8 voucher, but if you can't find housing in 90 days, you're displaced.
That's right.
So I think it warrants a bigger conversation.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman Coonrod. So we do look forward to that update on the 24th from them. And again, I just asked G&H be deferred until October 31st. We're still under ordinances first reading. Any other comments or questions regarding those items? All right, we have ordinances first reading, Public Works. Okay, we have resolutions on the council office. Councilman Hester.
Ordinance on the first reading. I need to defer.
0132.
0132, that's correct.
Lightfoot Mill Road,
That's correct.
okay. Do you have a deferral,
2 weeks.
2 weeks? All right, we'll be looking for that this evening. All right, resolutions. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Sorry about that. I was trying to find which one it was. J and K, District 8 and 9, we both share that district. So if, Ms. Karen or Ben, if you could get with both of us about, adding some additional things here, some amendments to it, because it affects both District 8 and 9. Okay,
Alright.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman Coonrod. Resolutions, council office, we also have economic development. Resolution on the legal, resolution confirming the appointment of Jim Exum as our administrative hearing officer. Very excited about that. Planning, Public Works. Any comments or questions, council? Okay, I don't see any lights. If you will take a look at next week's proposed agenda items. If any comments or questions, please hit your light. All right. Purchasing questions, if you take a look at your purchases, we have 3 purchases this evening and 4 sole source. We don't have any RFPs, emergencies, or renewals. Any comments or questions, please hit your light. Okay, if you will take a look at future considerations, any comments or questions? All right. Departmental reports, we don't have any committees today. We have a public safety committee with Councilman Henderson, and also following that, we do have an attorney-client meeting as well. All right, if there are no other comments or questions, I will turn it over to Councilman Henderson.
All right, call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting. Could I have approval of our minutes? All right, without objections, those meetings will stand as recorded. I do want to recognize, I noticed we have a couple of park members with us in the audience today. District 1 Representative Dee Visser, and I know it's the chair. District 3, tell me your name again. Mary Ann, thank you. Thank y'all for being here.
Christy Rashid, too.
Christy's here? Anybody else here? Okay, all right, okay. Oh, we got a lot of, all right, thank you for being here this afternoon, to hear the discussion. All right, so as most of us know, the legislature changed the law on us as to what they will allow our oversight committees, our review committees to do. And I'm going to ask our city attorney if he would just to give us a brief overview of the document all of you should have in your packet this afternoon, and then we're going to open it up for discussion.
Okay, sir. As y'all are aware, we now have a moratorium which was passed as ordinance number 14016 in August, the beginning of August, because there was a bill in the General Assembly that was passed on April the 23rd of 2023, and it was signed by the governor with an effective date of July 1st. Which basically changed the law here in Tennessee on police advisory and review committees and police oversight boards in the state. I think this was a situation where there was a swinging at an object, and there could have been a nicer scalpel being used as opposed to a sledgehammer in the process. But because of the sledgehammer that was utilized by the General Assembly, there were provisions that said that anything that was contrary to the federal law or the state law that was passed here would be, I guess, basically stricken as of July the 1st of 2023. We had a period of time to be able to bring things into compliance, which would be for a period up to and including October the 29th of 2023 in order to be consistent with the state law. But the provisions of this statute clearly said that it preempts any existing law, ordinance, resolution, charter provision, or regulation by a local governing body, which is the city of Chattanooga, concerning a police advisory and review committee or community oversight board or other similar police oversight body, which as of January the 1st of 2023 does not conform with the requirements of this section. That provision here said that if you had to do something to make it change to comply within 120 days of July 1st of 2023, or your oversight board was terminated. So because of that, this council acted to do a moratorium to prevent things occurring that would not be allowed under the new law here effective August the 1st. We were looking at provisions here in the state law that would be acceptable based upon the current statutory provisions, and we have prepared an ordinance which I believe is consistent with the current state law, but also provides for changes if there are changes that may occur in the General Assembly when they occur. So the issues that were at least reviewed by the Police Advisory Committee board here, there was a really good comparison matrix that was done up here talking about what were the differences between the state law as it exists right now and what existed in our ordinance that was drafted back in, I believe, in 2019. It's been in effect for more than 3 years. The board had been working properly, had been meeting regularly, had been making good decisions, and had providing advice to the police department regularly in accordance with our ordinance. But some of those things are changed in this new state law. Principal issues, I believe, or differences for the council to be aware of is that we had each council district represented by a member on the Police Advisory Review Board under our ordinance, and that's not allowed under the current law. The current law only allows a 7-member board, and no more than 2 persons can be within one district. But it sort of causes a little more confusion whenever this body, the city council, is trying to adopt 7 members. That's why we generally have 9-member boards here in the city. The appointment of members are not by the actual appointment by the city council district members now, but they are to be appointed by the mayor with discussion with the council members, and they have to be confirmed by a majority vote of the local governing body when that occurs. And as in our ordinance before, everything was staggered appointments to try to make sure that the membership of the board actually had some opportunity to see things that were going on the discipline regulation of the body as it was going on. But there are 4-year terms under the state law statute, and only in our in our ordinance it's for 4-year terms. And under the new state law provision, it's only for 3-year terms. So just be aware of those changes. So chairperson is now involved in an executive director position under the Police Advisory Review statute, which was not in our ordinance at all. It was more equivalent to what was involved in an operating agreement between the Knoxville Police Department and the City of Knoxville Police Advisory Review Committee earlier. But an executive director is supposed to be appointed for the Police Advisory Review Committee, and it's basically an employment position here appointed by the mayor, subject to approval of the majority of the committee members, not the city council. The committee members are supposed to be making a decision in that regard. It cannot be a person who is the executive director that is a member of the committee, and they're supposed to be paid compensation performed, which is ironic that this occurred effective July 1st. It was right after our budget for the year here in Chattanooga was passed as required under state law to be a fiscal budget in effect at the beginning of the fiscal year. It requires specific knowledge requirements for a person who is an executive director and someone that is willing to accept the payment that y'all would be willing to provide for the services of that person for the year. The chair in the past under our ordinance was the person that accepted all complaints, but under the new state law, it is the executive director that accepts complaints from anyone that is there, and then they forward those complaints to the internal affairs unit, and that there is keeping of statistical information from complaints as to what the I guess the police department does in connection with the matter. And then there is annual reports that will be compiled by the committee that prepares, receives the information in connection with this, but it's not information before the police chief makes a decision. Previously, y'all, as far as the Police Advisory Review Committee entity was actually providing input before that the police chief would consider whenever the chief made a decision. But this is after the fact. There are regular meetings that are supposed to be conducted quarterly. They have to be done at least quarterly, and 4 times a year there are requirements to actually provide reports to the city council in connection with this body. Your prior ordinance here in Chattanooga specifically required more reporting information than is required under this new state law. But we have to comply with the state law provisions. And last but not least, there are requirements that set the time periods of when cases can be reviewed. And based upon this statute, the General Assembly is saying that you cannot review any cases older than January the 1st of 2023. And that body has to make decisions and provide information here on matters only on those cases. So we have attempted to prepare a draft ordinance for you that complies with the state law that should be in your packet at this point in time, and I'm open to any revisions. If you need to know what we had before and what we've got now and what changes we might be able to do under state law, we'll be glad to discuss those.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. And before I open up the floor for discussion, we do have Major Chambers with us from CPD here this afternoon to answer any questions that we may have regarding police matters. All right, so at this time, I'm going to open the floor for any questions that council might have concerning our drafted ordinance. There we go. Madam Chair.
All right. My question, well, I have just a few questions. In regards to the executive director, it says the mayor may subject to budgetary constraints, approved by the city council, select an executive director. Is that mandatory for this to operate,
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
just based on the processes?
The way the process is set out in the statute, it sort of requires an executive director, and you got to be able to have someone that is willing to do that for the work that will be required of them, yes.
The language changed to the mayor has to or must or something? Shall.
I can do that. If you want me to keep it still subject to budgetary
Absolutely,
constraints, yes, ma'am.
absolutely.
All right, no problem.
And then leading into that budgetary constraints, then in that case, what budget does it come out of, or we just determine that?
Y'all determine that because y'all have control of the budget.
All right. And it mentioned they are to report once a year. Can we still require, well, I guess you can't require, it says at least once a year. So with at least once a year, can we still require the quarterly reports that we were getting?
I think so, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And,
Is that one of the changes
yes,
you'd like to
please.
see?
Yes, please. I thought that was good to have those quarterly reports, so at least we can keep track and see what's going on. And then what happens to, since they can't look at any cases prior to July 1st, what happens to all those cases that were in the queue in a sense? Do we just throw those out, or what happens there?
I think those will be decided by the chief in connection with the current statute here. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we don't have, so they wouldn't, so in their quarterly report, would they still report on those anyway? Even though it's from the old park as opposed to the new one?
It's not required under the state law here. Whatever you can get from the executive director as an open records request, I think you could probably request that as well. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And then could you go over again the terms? You said we had staggered terms and that was 4-year terms. Could you just explain that one more time?
It is 4-year terms. It says to be staggered.
Staggered.
though,
Oh,
so
to be
it's a longer term. And so you arguably will have folks that will be on here after you leave the council in
Okay.
that regard. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then to confirm, it goes from 9 members to 7 members.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And all those appointees come from the mayor?
That's what it says. Yes, ma'am.
Confirmed by us?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much.
Chair,
Disabled.
queue is disabled. It's just open.
It's just
Well, I
open.
probably
doing that
disabled it.
Just clear it out.
It's just open discussion. If it's open, then I have a question.
I got a question.
Y'all got
Just select me.
There we go.
go.
Now try
Now
it.
hit. Okay. There it is.
There we go. Let me get Councilwoman Burrs, Councilman Hester, if you'll go ahead, yeah, there we go. Councilwoman Burrs.
Just for clarification,
Yes, ma'am.
in general, it's taken the power from the city council and given it to the mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
And so ostensibly, it would fall under the mayor's budget.
I would think so. Yes, ma'am.
Well, as budget chair, would suggest since we don't have any power, maybe it would fall. Okay. And is my understanding that is correct? You can't do less than the law requires.
Right.
Can you do more than the law requires?
Clearly, on the aspect of asking for additional reports, yes. The concern I guess I've got in that regard is that the duties appear under the state statute to go less from the wonderful volunteer board that you've had in connection with this matter to a paid executive director that is pushing that matter. And I guess the question in that regard is the more you ask a paid person to do, the more the cost runs up. So that's what you got to be careful about.
So everything funnels through this executive director who may or may not forward it to, I'm sorry, is there a committee, this committee of 7?
Yes.
They have no power at all.
Well, the committee is designed to be able to get access to any of the records that the executive director has and to keep those records confidential under state law. So it is allowed in that regard, but they're not getting to have the input before a decision on discipline occurs like they were before. At this point in time, the decision on discipline is occurring, and then that is forwarded on to the committee after that occurs.
So it sounds to me that it puts any chief in a really difficult position because any criticism would come after the fact
Yes.
as opposed to a logical discussion before the fact.
Yes. And that was one of the concerns to the board, actually looking at one of the committee meetings in Knoxville, is that it seemed like there was a lot of criticism that was occurring basically every meeting that was going on timely at the end during citizen complaints here, but it was after the fact of actions occurring. It can have some effect on the changes in policies and procedures in the department, though, based upon how those meetings go. And they have, I guess, involvement on review of policies and procedures here and can make at least recommendations on that after the fact. It's not involving each individual incident like it has been before, though.
Was there any discussion that you know of as the law was changed as to what's the purpose of this?
No, ma'am, I thought it just was adopted because it looked sort of good like Knoxville's.
I think it sets up any police chief to be criticized after the fact, and that's unfortunate.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Councilman Hester.
I think you kind of indirectly answered one of my questions I was going to ask. Was Knoxville already in compliance to this new ordinance?
It sure looks like it. Most of the provisions that Knoxville had in effect were adopted in accordance with this. They had a committee that was set up by an agreement, an operating agreement between the police department and the committee up there. I think their statute that allowed them to begin was the same statute that allowed Chattanooga, Nashville, and Memphis to have those. I believe there were only 4 police advisory review or police oversight committees in the entire state at the time this law occurred. But it affected all 4 of those cities at the time it was amended here in July.
How many districts Knoxville divided into, do you know?
Gosh, I do not know on that end of it. I do not know if I would assume they clearly have more than 7 though.
Right.
Yeah, so, and it may be interaction, you've got some cities that have a tremendous number of, I guess, districts involved, and it might be difficult to have a advisory review committee that would have 30 or 40 members. That may be one of the issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you. I can't imagine where we will pull the money from since we say we don't have money to pave enough roads and implement sidewalks and, hire people or keep people in certain positions, but we're gonna miraculously find some money for this position. Not that I'm against them not being paid, but I don't recall the line in the law that said that we're supposed to pay anyone to serve in this role. It was strictly voluntarily, but I do remember reading where it says that the local government body, we will have to pay for the fingerprinting.
Yes.
Now, if we're gonna be bold to institute, now that's paying the executive director is going outside of what the state law say, which I'm fine with that. But if we're gonna go outside the law for that, then we need to go outside the law to make sure that we have 9 people serving on the board. It's both for me. We can't just say, oh, well, we're gonna put this piece in there, even though it wasn't in the legislation, but we wanna negate the fact that we only have 7 people according to the new law. So I would like for us to be bold. What they gonna say? They gonna either roll with us or not. But if they gonna discredit the 2 people, then you gotta discredit the budget for it. Like it make sense for me. So let's just do both.
And I guess the only danger you have in that regard is they said in the state law that anything that is inconsistent with this it's been preempted by state law. And that might result in some sort of claim coming down from the Attorney General's office here towards Chattanooga in that regard. The aspect of 9 members makes a whole lot more sense to me here than just 7 members, as we've already done previously with the Industrial Development Board and the Health and Education and Housing Facilities Board here to give each council member some involvement. Although y'all do not have, 30 or 40 members like they might have in some areas, that would make it very difficult to get decision-making or gather everybody up for a meeting.
That's right. Well, see, Phil, part of my wanting you to be our city attorney it's because you can go advocate for us. Like, that's your job. I ain't never known you to be no sucker or bag down or be scared. So that'll be part of your role. If they preempt us,
Yes, ma'am.
you go in being the bulldog like we expect you to do all the time. Because if we're gonna go against the legislation to say, you know, if we're gonna pay, because that's not currently in the law, right? But if we hear it saying, yeah, mayor shall, and I'm sure our mayor is gonna find a way to pay the executive director for it, which would be great. All I'm saying is push the issue to make sure we have 9. If they want to preempt us, that's what we pay you for.
Yes, ma'am. Well, that's just another lawsuit for me, but we just need to make sure on our end of it that that's what the council wants to do, and I will abide by what the council does, and it's my obligation to also tell you about the dangers. So that's the reason I'm doing it.
I appreciate it.
You good, Councilwoman?
Yep.
Councilwoman, no.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just have 2 questions. Tell me again, or explain to me again, what the 7-person board would do. And then my second question is, which 2 districts will not be represented on that board?
Well, that's the danger about 7 members versus 9 members, and why we typically try to have 9-member boards on things that we do. But the issue would be up to the council, as it was before when you were trying to pick a decision-making on the IDB or the HEB. Y'all developed, I believe, a round-robin method of having certain numbers of the council would pick a person that would fit the body to get up to 7 members. And you would rotate that around. That's how you did it previously. But that was not really the number that I picked in connection with this state law. It was given to us by the General Assembly. So that's one method to be able to do it. It's clearly calling for staggered terms that are involved in here under the law that would be involved. And the committee members, your question about what they would do, they are at least required under the law to maintain confidentiality of the internal affairs unit files. That means they're going to be seeing those. They would continue to see those as they've done before. They would be able to review personnel files, records, and recordings that are received pertaining to their membership, which also includes the same type of body cam type information that would have been presented previously to them. And they can't get involved in a complaint in which they have a personal, professional, or financial conflict of interest in. They have to conduct themselves in a manner that ensures public confidence in their fairness that they do. And they have an attorney for the local governmental entity will investigate any allegation of misconduct by anybody that's on the committee. So that's another issue regarding the ethics part of your code that would give me one more job here in connection with review if needed. So that's out there. Hopefully it's designed to actually have a committee and staff working together to review the actions of the police department in connection with incidents that are ongoing, and at least having some duty of the executive director, just like it's been in the past, to accept any type of sworn complaints that are there from the public. Those are reviewed and presented. The executive director would be doing more work on reviewing those right now than the committee has been doing all of that in connection with this matter for free. But the executive director is recording all the information and then presents a report to the committee of what they have determined, what the executive director has determined. So that the committee also can tell the executive director, we don't have enough information, you need to go back and provide us with more stuff. So that's included all within the state law.
So they're telling that you need more information so did I understand that they have no say-so in the outcome or whatever?
The chief is to make his decision here based upon.
Or hers.
Or hers. The chief and her are entitled to make their decisions based upon it being an employee of the police department here, of their employees. The committee is to present reports and meetings of the action that has occurred in here, and not to get involved in the investigation process until it's completed. There are also provisions that say the review of this body can't be ongoing and used as a discovery tool in the middle of ongoing civil litigation as well. So that's one of the issues that this body sometimes might be tried to be used in connection with discovery in a civil case.
So then the 7-person board is just like sitting on a shelf collecting dust until,
I would not say dust.
Until-
I think they would be active.
I mean, yeah,
The people that you have had on your committee would not be dust collectors. I do not
yeah,
think.
I mean,
No.
just because they're not giving them any power here, authority. They just kind of,
It's significantly limiting the powers that our committee
Yeah.
and this council gave that committee. Yes,
okay. All right, thank you.
yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Burrs?
Phil,
Yes, ma'am.
the mayor appoints the members, not the council, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So it would
But you
the,
confirm, yes.
we confirm, but the mayor would appoint the 7 or 9 or that sort of thing that we confirm. In
Yes.
other words, it's not up to us to change the numbers, it's up to the mayor's office.
Well, it would be, if y'all pass the ordinance, and if you put a number of 9 in there, I'll put a number of 9 in there. We'll have to see whether the state attorney general's office wants to fuss with us.
Okay, and then the mayor implements it.
Yes, that's the way the state statute reads, yes.
Okay, and then just one more question of clarification. Can the executive director choose not to present cases to the group?
I don't think so. I think that would be a matter for the committee to request that information and what they want from the executive director at the time that is allowed under the statute.
However, if I heard you correctly, the executive director is the one who presents to the committee.
Yes.
Does the executive director pick and choose what she or he presents to the committee? Do they have that power?
They have the power to put things on the agenda for a meeting. I believe that would come up.
Or not put things
Or
on
not
the,
to put things on the committee. They can't just allow things to go away though, because it's still going to be a public record in that regard. And the committee members themselves have the power to be able to request public information at any time.
so when there is, I'm trying to figure out the flow. If there is a case, how does a case come to the attention of the executive director?
I think the provision is they would get any sworn or written complaints from anybody, from the public,
Anyone?
anyone. And after they receive it, then they are to turn that over to the head of the internal affairs unit. And then once a notification occurs that an investigation is closed, at that point in time, then it comes to the committee here to determine whether it's complete or not.
Or
Yes.
whether they did,
They're
internal affairs acted correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Phil, I do have one follow-up concerning, well, a couple of things. The compensation for the executive director,
Yes, sir.
was that allowed for in state law? What did the state law, how did the state law
They
address it?
They really didn't put in a number. They put in
I don't
a,
mean a number. Did they address it at all?
there was a fiscal note that was passed as part of the legislative act whenever it occurred, saying that the cost that was in effect for some of the cities were somewhere in excess of $20,000 to $30,000 a year, and they did not think that that was a substantial amount that would be a problem. I guess that's based upon a quarterly meeting, but I don't know how you pay someone to work all year long and handle all of the complaints for that number.
Well, that's really not I'm not asking the amount.
Sure.
I'm saying, did the legislation address compensation for the executive director?
It specifically said that, let me get the section in here. I believe there's a section that actually talks about them getting paid.
Okay.
I believe it it says that they shall be compensated. It does not.
Well, that was my question, because,
But it said may, subject to budgetary constraints approved by the council, select an executive director. So budget is at least required.
okay. So the state legislation at least recognizes that an executive director could be compensated for.
Yes, sir.
So that's not outside of the law.
No, sir. No, I think that'd be.
But going to a 9-person board would be outside the law.
It is not allowed currently in the statute.
Okay. The next question I've got, 16-61-3, no more than 2 persons may be appointed from one district. That's not in state law, correct?
No, I believe that was part of the state law provision.
Well, so if we can be more restrictive, can we say no district shall have no district shall have 2 representatives? What I'm trying to do is eliminate the possibility of one district having 2, that would mean 3 wouldn't have.
Right.
More than one.
No district may have more than one. Okay,
So we want to make that change.
okay.
No district can have more than 1. Major Chambers, do you have anything you'd like to add to this discussion? Or, I'm not saying you have to, but
Yes, sir.
do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'll just say that on behalf of the police department,
Well, come to the microphone.
yes, sir. Just on behalf of the police department, we are standing, willing, able, prepared, would like to be able to partner with, continue to partner with the community and council to see some form, if that's what you deem necessary, or what you feel is best for the community. We've not opposed to it whatsoever, whatever it looks like. We're in favor to continue working with our community, to continue to provide oversight and guidance on policy recommendations and the like.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Does the chair, I'm going to open it up to the chair. Would the chair like to address the council about this new ordinance?
Good afternoon. I would just say, from my perspective, the 2 key pieces that are most concerning to me are the when we review the cases. First of all, we review them after, as Phil mentioned, we review them after the chief has made a decision. The other piece that I would just bring up is we have to review, all of the meetings have to be public. So we don't get the opportunity to go into depth, into big discussions with members of IA or other members of the police department to discuss pertinent details that, in our experience, have really influenced the way that we review and view the outcomes of these cases. And so those are kind of the 2 biggest pieces that I would bring to your attention, just that take away, as Ms. Baker would say, the teeth of the committee.
So I guess, both of those concerns are our concerns as well, but they are sort of we're constrained by state law. And I guess maybe what I was asking, if you had any comment about this proposed ordinance that the council's going to consider.
I think that you're asking the right questions. I think that you'll be hard pressed to find someone to accept an executive director position for, a very minimal amount. And I think that you'll be hard pressed to find any current member, and I won't speak for all of you, but under the new ordinance, under the new state laws, I think it'll be hard to find someone that's willing to stay once we've seen how effective the board has been already. So that's.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Marion, Marion?
Marion, Ms. Hanson?
The one thing I would ask, has it worked okay? Because we do quarterly reports here by your body here, and those are public meetings each time, correct?
Yes, those are. And in the quarterly meetings, we don't discuss details of cases. We get to provide, how many instances of a certain violation, we found complaints filed for. But as far as the committee getting to meet together, so many of the important details that determine the way that we view these things and that inform our recommendations to the chief, all of that color will be lost.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems about the Open Meetings Act is that whenever y'all are doing that, you're making a report to the council, which is a public body. Mm-hmm. So all of those meetings occur in a public session because you're making that recommendation to the council. Beyond that, any recommendations you had been making were directly to the chief before the chief provided any type of decision concerning a matter, which
Correct.
we were at least under the understanding was not within the Open Meetings Act at that point, correct?
Yep, correct.
Okay, but that process, was it working correctly and providing good advice, you thought, to the chief and the department?
Absolutely, and I'm sure Major Chambers could speak to that as well, but we've had a great relationship with the police department. It's been very collaborative. A lot of trust has been built, so we just hate to see that go away.
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod, is this a question for Ms. Hensley?
No, but I did want to see if we can hear from the people that serve on the committee.
Oh, sure.
Like if they, I would like
You want to open it up to every one of them? Okay, all right. We're going to open it up to everybody in the committee. Anybody wants to come up and speak can come on up and speak. Just line up.
Thank you. I sat on the committee, and I think as we were talking about 7 to 9, you lose some connection with the community. So I think we need to push for the 9, but it's state law. What can we do? Prior, as we were talking about meeting publicly and privately, we were able to look at those cases previously in a private setting with the committee to go over body cam footage, to go over any of those items. Now, on the quarterly meeting, it's public and we go over some stuff, but we don't go in depth. I think the Knoxville, the way they're holding their committees, would put our committee meeting almost like some of our crazy city council meetings, where the person that accused the officer is not in there when we're looking at body camage. Could you imagine someone that was accusing an officer and we didn't find it that way, but they're there screaming at the committee, at the officer, and basically the show that we get with, unfortunately, with the city council from time to time. And then I think as a community, as we see across the country, we're going to lose, us being able to help and guide and give direction and stuff to the police chief, with us not having a bite in it, I think a community, we're stepping backwards. And I know that's not us, that's the state, but we got to have 9 members and we need to be able to have a bite in that. That way one person's not doing it all. And then I would also, the job that Mary does is extremely hard and it's a volunteer job. You're not going to find somebody to do that job voluntarily. I know we've discussed pay. I don't know what that number is, but you're not going to find a person that can do that job, execute that job properly year-round without compensating them. So I think the city, we spend a lot of money in a lot of different areas, so compensating that person, whoever that person might be, is an investment in that committee. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Christy Rashid, District 5, and I feel we'll be doing our city a disservice going with the 7 that the state has required. Also, we would be just rubber stamping. We would not really have an input into the situation. I think sometimes we need to have a voice into what's going on. And I think our recommendations to the chief has been received well. our communications with the police department has been well. So how can we effectively represent each one here on this committee with 7? And then the mayor's office will do the selection. I think we're losing control. We wouldn't be anything but a rubber stamp. Our time that we put in these last 3 years into this committee would be null and void. I think we need to really voice our opinion to the state and let them know how effective we have been in accomplishing goals and looking at issues and changing things in a positive way. Because right now, I just don't see my time being wasted coming to a quarterly meeting, rubber stamping, because the executive director will have the chance to select what we see and not everything. Whereas in the past, we've got a chance to look at every case. We receive cases before we would come to a committee meeting. So if we had voices and concern, we could also ask for a body cam to be shown. If we disagreed, we all disagreed together. It was a family. We developed that relationship because we care about Chattanooga and the safety of our community. And our police chief and all of the officers that have been working with us, we have developed what we need. I don't see anything that should be changed. And I think the state should have come to each county, our city, and ask what's working and what isn't working before they made such a drastic requirement. The executive director being paid, you can't get a good person to do that like that. What we've done, we volunteered this. We didn't get paid. We never asked for pay. We didn't even get a real good thank you for our time that we've committed to this 3-year event. So really, basically, it feels like we've been slapped in the face. And the state needs to hear how we feel about this. I think everyone on our committee was dedicated to making things better. But what we're getting now, the mayor doesn't know everyone in this city. He's got to get a recommendation from someone. Or you're going to publicize and get people. So how will the decisions be made? How will we know what's going to happen? What are the requirements to even serve on that committee? So those are concerns for me. I think every district, I agree with you all, I think every district should have someone on there. And I think that law needs to state not 2 from a district, but 1, to be fair, because we're already losing 2. And I said, why not have 9 and have 2 as a substitute? So if someone can't make a meeting, then you still will have a quorum. So why not look at it that way rather than not having all 9 there? And then when that person time roll off, you have someone ready. Because if you haven't completed all the training, you could come to the meeting, but you couldn't vote. So that would alleviate time lost. That way you're having people to roll constantly in and out and to know exactly what is expected. Those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. Kanika Jones, I represent District 9. I just want to add that I do support the push from 7 to 9. As a senior lead person in talent acquisition for a Fortune 1000 company, and I'm also the chair of diversity, equity, and inclusion inside this company. And the diversity is what concerns me when you don't have all districts represented. And so when we look at districts, those are communities. And inside these communities, is diverse, diverse people. And so we need that representation on every single, with every single community. And also for the board, not only diversity in terms of race, but diversity in terms of thought, which is something that's big when we're covering these cases and looking at these cases. My peers, sometimes will come up something that I never thought about because I wasn't raised that way, or I don't have that type of lens, so I do support that. Excuse me, kind of under the weather. And another thing, the executive director role. Of course, everybody agrees that $30,000 is not enough to do as much as that person is expected to do. And as someone who's hired hundreds of Chattanooga citizens into a company here, I pay that amount for entry-level customer service people that answer phones, and a lot of times they don't even come with a high school diploma. Excuse me. And to have someone who has that much responsibility in front of them and pay them that amount, it just doesn't make sense. I also would consider, taking that pay up higher, but looking at the board, the committee, to see if any committee members are willing to become the executive director. I don't know if I heard that right, but I think I heard that it could happen, that a member of PARC could step down and, maybe possibly become the executive director. I'm not sure if that's what I heard or not.
It'd be an issue for the mayor's office as long as they would be willing to do that, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I don't think you can be both a member of the
Right, you
park
can't,
committee
but if
and
they're
and
willing
the executive
to
director.
step down.
Yes,
I think that's valuable because on the committee, you have people who have already been doing the job. And so I think that would be smart to look into that as a candidate pool for this executive director role, but it couldn't definitely be for 30,000. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Councilwoman Coonrod, did you have a question for one of the, no? Well, let's let all the committee members speak, and then we'll take questions from the council again.
Hi, I'm Dee Visser. I'm from District 1. As I listened to all my fellow committee members talk, I thought, what a privilege it's been to serve. But how I reiterate what Kanika was saying, and Christy as well, how we are diverse. I remember having an argument with one of the members, and at the end, it's like, high five, we're good. We voted differently, but we were still okay with it. And I think that is so important. And I think we have run this and clicked with the police department. I remember one of them telling me, the beginning, the police officers didn't like us. They thought we were out to get them. And after a time, they're like, oh, they aren't. We are working with them and with our citizens to make our city better. And I think it's a shame that our governor and the General Assembly have voted on this without coming and seeing how we do things. Because to be frank, Knoxville was a joke. It was awful. It is ineffective. And this new committee, whoever it will be a joke. I don't think any of you would want to work here and have your voice not matter. And that's what it will be. Our voices will not matter because the chief will have made her decision. And I think we need to fight a little bit. We need to scream. I don't know what needs to happen, but this is bad. This is not good. And it's not good for our city, but it's also not good for our state. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, are there any other committee members that are here that would like to address the council? All right. We appreciate you being here this afternoon.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I appreciate all the comments, and Chairman Henderson, thank you for giving them the opportunity to come, share their thoughts and their concerns. But I wanted to go back because I don't want the people to get confused in what I'm saying. Because I'm not against the executive director getting paid by far. And I do think it would need to be more than 30,000 or whatever we set it to be, that it should be a reasonable amount. But what I am saying, because this is what get people confused when we don't read the legislation, HB 0764 and SB 0591. Nowhere in the state law is it saying that we have to pay. But it does say in the state law that we have to pay for the background checks. So it's two different things. But according to what we're drafting, we're saying, or putting it into the fact to say that we wanna, if budgetary constraints allows that, we're gonna pay. Which is, now, that's two different things. It's not in the state law. And all I'm saying is that if the budget to pay is not in the state law for the executive director, we should be able to also add that we can have 9 members. We're going outside what the law say, or to add it in our law that we'll pay somebody. It makes sense to me, and it should to council too, that, okay, if that's, we're gonna go ahead with that, then yeah, we should add 9 members in there. It's the same thing. We can, again, I repeat it, HB 0764 and SB 0591. The only mention of us paying is the governing body for the fingerprint background checks. Nowhere in this state law, the Tennessee state law, says that we have to pay. Now, we're putting it in our legislation for the city of Chattanooga, which is fine. So I don't want anybody to go away with your notes saying, Coonrod saying she against it. I just want to make sure that we're also being bold to add that we want 9 people versus 7. That's all I'm asking for, because we're going outside of what the law say for pay, which is cool. We should be able to go outside the law to add 2 additional members, because what I've seen traditionally on council, that in some committees have had more than 2 people from their community serving, and other communities are left out, and were already left out. A lot of times, majority of the time, in Black communities, we're underserved when it comes to boards, and it doesn't always have to be because Chris can't find somebody to serve in those capacities. Is that a lot of times their resume outspeaks for the person, for our community, and they get selected more so than ours, I'm just gonna be honest. But I think people have been stepping up to the plate in our community to want to serve on boards now. But I think we just, I really would like to strongly suggest that we add 9 in the footprint of our legislation, along with, like we've already added, them getting paid. Thank you.
Councilwoman Burks.
I'm gonna try again, Phil.
Yes, ma'am.
If it says the committee shall have, what's the exact language? No more than 7?
Let me get right to the section on here.
And they're open meetings, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I was listening to something Christie said, and she may have something. Can we,
With alternate members?
we can appoint 9 people.
I think you just appoint 9 people if you.
All right,
if you go
so
there.
why can't we appoint 9 people?
Mhm.
All right. I need to think more about this. But if they work as a whole, like I think they do, if I'm there as an alternate, I can still speak, right?
Sure,
Okay. I can give all my opinions, right?
yes,
The only thing I can't do on a particular item is vote. Is that correct?
if there is already 7 people there, that would be the only issue, yes.
All right. I want to think more about that, because I think we can have 9. With, I've never had any problem taking on the state. That's never been an issue. But the bottom line is, in the interim, I think we can have 9. I'm not hearing the law in any way to say we can't.
It was just confusing in that regard insofar as the state statute repealed the section 38.8.312 and said that a committee consists of 7 members that have to have certain qualifications.
That's cool. But it could have 2 visitors or 2 alternates. In other words, they're open meetings, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I need to think more about the wording, not to get around that, but it's so that all 9 people in that meeting can have a voice. Yes?
Sure. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I want to think about that, because you can't unhear their voices, and I would never silence anyone. So, okay.
Yes.
All right. The second thing is, they can meet as many times as they want, right?
Yes, they have to at least meet quarterly, I think it says.
But they could meet monthly.
They could.
They could continue their same pattern. The only difference is the possibility of an executive director censoring things, if you will.
I
And
think that's in the working relationship you have with an executive
that's
director.
my point. And then, the other thing is, they have their input after the fact.
Yes,
Okay. Got to think more about that. But I think there's a way to get around this and do it, and then challenge the state to say no.
yes,
But I think it comes in the court of public opinion.
yes.
And since their meetings are open, I think they can speak well, like they did in their open meetings. And I think the court of public opinion may quickly change that law.
Yes.
It's just something to think about.
Is that all?
Well, not really.
All right, Mr. Attorney, our moratorium ends October 29th, correct?
Yes,
And then everything is preempted at what date? In other words,
well, I guess if we don't have new legislation, it's all preempted by October 29th. That's the reason we were trying to get you something here.
and so after October 29th, if we don't have any new legislation, the police department continues to review the cases as they are currently.
Yes,
Is that correct, Major Chambers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, that
Okay.
is correct.
So y'all are currently reviewing cases
Yes, sir.
just through internal methods? Okay.
That is correct.
Without, I guess, an ordinance saying you're supposed to have a committee to do it?
Correct.
Correct, yeah, okay. All right, so council, I guess what my question is to you, I'm hearing some, I want to think about it. You know, if we want to have an ordinance by the 29th, we probably need to get it on the 2-week agenda. Do you want to go ahead and place it on the 2-week agenda?
When's our next strategic plan?
Just sit and talk. The 17th. It's next week.
Next Tuesday.
Well, I mean, it's up to Madam Chair, but I mean, there is time for discussion before the 7th.
But it's not much time, because we have to have it by the 29th.
If we do it next week,
Well,
that gives us 2 weeks.
first vote would have to be next week, actually.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, well, even if we voted on it on the 24th, then we'd have second read on the 31st. Well, I'm listening to council. I mean, we can, do we want to hold off?
Is there a way to make those changes that we made today and put them on and make whatever amendments we need to make on the 17th? And we can discuss it in strategic planning?
Yeah, I'm good with whatever, I just.
But it needs to at least be on the agenda for the.
Yeah,
for
okay,
the-
that's
yeah.
good.
So
For the
that way-
17th?
Yeah, so we can put it on for next week with the shalls and things all the things.
And then make amendments to it?
Make amendments to it. At least it's on there, so we'll be able to move forward with whatever.
and I can make those changes that have been suggested in this meeting, so you'll have them. I guess the one question I need is some sort of consensus on, you want me to go up to a 9-member board committee?
It's the wording. I would say you want a 9-member board, and
I-
you could say.
I think that's one of those things that would need to be in an amendment.
Yeah.
Okay,
If we're going to put this on for the 17th, let's put it on like this with those couple of changes, one being the the mayor shall appoint an executive director
no
and
more than one from any one district.
no more than one from any one district. And then we can make amendments to to the 9 members as we think we can.
And I did include a catch-all at the end of this. Just want to make sure y'all were aware that it at least said that you will review this chapter and make any changes you deem necessary at any time which comply with state law. So if the state law changes at some point in time to give you more leeway, then I was trying to give you an option to bring that up at any point in time. But the question about 7 versus 9 members is something y'all need to discuss in your strategic planning, and we can do that as an amendment if you wish.
Phil, I do have one other question. We required the current members to have 2 ride-alongs and the Citizens Police Academy.
Okay? And I can add that as a requirement if you'd rather have that. I think that gave your existing members a whole lot of experience that was helpful.
I mean, the current members had to do 2 ride-alongs and attend a police academy. I think we want those same requirements in this, don't we? So let's add those requirements to this new committee.
Okay.
As well.
I'll get it.
And then I think I heard the council okay with having this on the 17th and then discussing it in strategic planning and then making whatever amendments we feel like is appropriate at that point in time. Okay? Councilwoman Cooner.
You remember when COVID, are we gonna keep those same stipulations? Because when COVID happened, they wasn't doing ride-alongs. Now, they got the increase of, that's on the rise again. Will that stop the people from, being on the committee or talking about it or serving if they're not able to do a ride-along or the Citizens Academy?
Or you say you're opposed to those requirements, or?
No, I think it should happen, but it still need to be said how we done previously.
Well,
If they're not doing ride-alongs at this time because of influx of COVID
Well, I mean,
or
I
whatever,
guess, I guess we could add some kind of phrase,
they still should be able to be a part to participate, because it could be, anything can happen.
based on,
Current language we got in here about COVID exceptions
Yeah,
on there.
yeah.
I'll add that.
yeah,
Right, so they won't just be sitting on the
Yeah.
sideline.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any other questions, comments from this council before we adjourn? If not, we will be adjourned till 4, correct, Madam Chair? And we got a attorney-client.